Hi, I'm Christian Phillips. I'm the principal broker and owner of Inlet Realty and Property Management. We're a full-service real estate brokerage out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, where we practice residential and commercial real estate. I'm here today to talk about what makes a good rental property. So what does that even mean? What are you looking for in a good rental property? Good cash flow, low repairs, low vacancy, low turnover, right? But how do you get there? It's not a straight answer. It's a multivariable equation. And as with any multivariable equation, there are several sets of answers that may very well solve the equation. So where do you even start? We need to look at three main factors: location, the type of property, and the condition of the property. All equally as important. Okay, first, location. Location is an expression for a reason. In investing, though, location is a balance of risk and reward. Poor location will lead to higher vacancy risks, amongst other things. Rural properties may experience low demand and therefore more vacancy. Not every city or part of the country has a rental market that's worth investing in. But at the same time, nothing says you have to live near your rentals. Some properties are in flood zones that require flood insurance. This can be a complete deal killer, but not always. Always run your numbers and never guess at what the premiums are going to be. They can be astounding, and there is no guarantee that you can assume the existing flood insurance policy. Higher crime areas with lower rents often produce much better cash flow because the properties are less expensive to acquire in the first place. That comes with risk, though, usually in the form of more evictions and more vacancy. So what about the type of property? What makes a better rental? A single family home, a townhouse, a condominium? The reality is that any of them can be a great rental property. You just have to take a closer look. They all have their own risks. Some properties have condo fees. Some of those condo fees that include utilities will start off high and only go higher from there. While there's several parts of the equation that will increase over time, property taxes will increase over time, insurance will increase, the fees for the association are the most likely to increase over time dramatically. What about foundation type? If you have a choice between two identical properties and one of them is on a crawl space and one of them is on a slab, I would take the one on the slab every day. I wouldn't not buy a property only because it's on a crawl space, but crawl spaces present risks that slabs just do not. Slabs present their own risk, and fixing a slab leak is not a small project. It can be $1,000 or $2,000 to fix a slab leak. But the reality is slab leaks do not present as often as other crawl space problems do. In a crawl space, you can have rodent infestations, you can have termite infestations, you can have wood-destroying fungus and moisture, all things that will impact your structure and cost you money. So if you have the opportunity, a slab is better. Don't let the crawl space be a deal killer, but inspect it thoroughly before you buy. Another very important factor is the ratio of bedrooms to bathrooms, and what is acceptable on this has changed over the years. 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom is not okay. A property like that would even be better marketed as a 3-bedroom with an office that could be a 4th bedroom. But the bottom line on that is don't expect to get rent that you would get for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath if you only have 1 bathroom. It presents a significant problem. Now, what about the size of the house itself? How big is too big? You don't want a house that's so small that nobody wants to live in it, but a larger home, while it will draw more rent, is also going to have more expenses as they come due. More windows, more carpet, more paint, a larger roof, more HVAC zones. Those are all factors on larger properties that make them less desirable as rental properties. Multiple zone HVAC systems present a serious financial peril for the owner of a rental property. By having a 2-zone system versus a 1-zone system on the same size house, you are inevitably going to have twice the amount of repairs and twice the amount of full system replacements in the same period of time. So while a two-zone system makes a house great to live in when you live there, it doesn't draw any additional rent and will present twice as many HVAC expenses. Speaking of HVAC, some houses have oil heat. Houses with oil heat do not make great rental properties. One of two things ends up happening there. Either you as the owner end up on the hook for the home heating oil, or the tenant ends up on the hook for the price of the home heating oil. Either way, nobody wants to pay that bill. So if you have the opportunity to avoid that, do so. Now, what about window air conditioners and baseboard heat? A lot of people don't like to live in a property that does not have central air, and your property will draw less rent if the only way that it is heated and cooled is with baseboard heaters and window air conditioners. However, you will have significantly less HVAC expenses over the course of owning that property, so it's a trade-off. Let's talk about boilers. Boilers, I would say, are probably worse than oil heat for a way of heating a home as a rental property. They're prone to problems and they're expensive to replace. I would avoid those just like I would avoid oil heat. Now, what about water and sewer? Is your property getting the water and sewer service from the city? Or are you in a more rural location with a well and a septic tank? City water and sewer is always easier. The city maintains the systems. With a well and a septic tank, while you may not have a hard time finding a tenant, you are more likely to have water issues with hard water or sulfur water. The septic tank needs to be pumped on a regular basis. And over time, that septic tank and leach fields will need to be replaced. So while it's not a deal killer in a rental property, a property that is serviced by well and septic is definitely not the ideal property. So if you're already on the fence on whether or not this is a good property and it has well and septic, it might be a property to avoid. Now, let's look at what do you as the landlord provide in this property. If you have a beautiful property in a great location, but you don't provide a refrigerator or a washer and dryer, you're gonna have a very hard time finding a tenant, and you're not gonna get the amount of rent that you should be getting. People who rent your property are not dragging around their own refrigerators or their own washers and dryers, and they don't wanna have to buy one just to move into your rental. This is a very common mistake that landlords make because they don't want to be on the hook for the repairs for these appliances. But the reality is they don't break very much, and you will lose way more in rent by not providing them than you will save in repairs by not including them. Now, when you're looking at which property to buy, if you have the choice between a property that has a washer and dryer in the unit versus one that does not have any laundry hookups in the unit, nobody wants to go to the laundromat. It is a big deal, and you'll get significantly more in rent. I mean, like $100 or $200 a month more just for having those laundry facilities in the unit. Okay, now on to condition. The condition of the property impacts two things: how happy your tenants are there and how much money you're going to have to spend maintaining this property while you own it. The first thing I like to look at is the windows. Windows with missing or torn screens, windows that are hard to open or don't open at all, not only present a safety risk for your tenants, but it impacts their quality of life. Tenants will pay a higher power bill every month with old windows than they will with new windows, and this will lead to higher turnover in your property. New windows are at least $400 per window installed, so do not discount this expense. Count the windows on the property if they're old and calculate what that expense is going to be and make sure you budget for it. You have to take an overall look at the property and see if there's anything else there that is aging that will need to be replaced while you own it. A roof has a lifespan of 20 years or 30 years, and the replacement cost on a typical roof is about $10,000 right now. So if you have a roof at the end of its useful life, you can eat up any cash flow that you would have for the foreseeable future just doing that maintenance up front when you buy the property. The reality is, though, the better condition your property is internally in the finishes, the higher rent you will get. Tenants are willing to pay more money for nicer finishes because when you rent a property, you can't change anything. You can't change the countertops or the cabinets. So when you put a nice kitchen and a nice bathroom in your rental property, it will pay for itself. I put granite countertops in every unit that I turn because it pays for itself in less than a year. Granite's also extremely durable. People worry about it breaking and having to replace an expensive countertop. The reality is it doesn't break. I've had to conduct far more repairs on laminate countertops than I have on the granite that we have. So what it all boils down to is this. If you buy a great property in a great area, don't expect it to be a cash cow because your risk is so low. The main question you have to ask yourself as an investor is, with all of these factors baked in the cake, is the amount of cash flow that you will receive worth the risk that you are taking? You need to find a balance of risk and reward that is commensurate with your particular financial situation. In my next video, we're going to be going over the advantages of investing in multifamily real estate, where the cash flow is almost always better right out of the gate. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.